Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are ready to get started. Thank you for your time. I think we're going to start now. I think we have all the major participants online. We will first start with a short introduction to the book project by Gunjan Shah, who is one of the trustees for the Center for Peace and Progress.
As we approach the 75th anniversary of the independence of India and Pakistan, it becomes important for us to take stock of the current status of Indo-Pak relations and of ways to improve it. This book is an attempt to that end. In Pursuit of Peace, Improving Indo-Pak Relations is a compilation of essays written by 49 eminent political leaders, social activists, journalists, and academics from Pakistan and India. The book has been edited by Mr. O.P. Shah, Chairperson, Center for Peace and Progress, and has been published by the Center for Peace and Progress. As many of you may already know, the Center for Peace and Progress is a non-partisan, non-governmental organization which has, over the last 4 decades, worked on issues relating to communal and racial harmony, national integration, probity in public life, and peace in the subcontinent. Thank you. Over to Mr. Shah.
Mr. Shah will first present the book and then moderate a discussion.
Friends, some of you have seen the book, but the friends in Pakistan have not seen the book in reality. I have sent them online. This is the book. Thank you. Can we now begin the discussion? Friends, Indo-Pak relations are far from normal and comfortable. Well-meaning people of the subcontinent, especially of India and Pakistan, need to work hard to create a climate of trust and confidence so that the relations between the two countries improve. And this book is an attempt in that direction, where very eminent Indians and Pakistani have contributed their articles for suggested the ways of improving Indo-Pak relations. The idea of this meeting is to create a climate of trust and confidence so that, in the words of Gandhiji, we help those who are in need of our help and those who are in distress. So whenever we think of any solution, we think of people who are very uncomfortable in their life, who don't get things which they deserve. And that is why there is a need for a climate of trust and confidence in this country so that the two neighbors can live comfortably. I'm very grateful to 49 friends from India and Pakistan who at a very short notice contributed articles of significance. And I'm sure this meeting also will help us in creating that climate of trust and confidence. Since good number of friends would like to contribute today, I would request each participant to be as brief as possible, between 4 to 5 minutes. And I'd like to begin with my friend of 30 years, Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri, to initiate the discussion, and he will be followed by Yashwant Sinha Sahab and Dr. Farooq Abdullah. Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri Sahab. We can't hear.
Mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mr. O.P. Shah, Chairman, Center for Peace and Progress, for organizing this webinar. I joined a few minutes late, so I'm not in a position to recognize many people except the two that you mentioned, Mr. Yashwant Sinha and Mr. Farooq Abdullah. But I'm
Your
sure
friend Mani Shankar Iyer is also here.
Mani Shankar Saab and whoever from Pakistan.
I just mentioned.
Okay, if there are some names, please do let me know. I can at least recognize them because I couldn't see many people. And thank you very much for asking me to initiate this discussion. And I'd like to actually remind you that the last time you organized a webinar was on February 2021, when the atmosphere was more upbeat, because at that time, the DGs and MOs had met, and they had used language which is not normally used by military people. And the language I'd like to quote exactly to address those core issues and concerns which are propensity to disturb peace and lead to violence, quote unquote. Now, everybody thought, well, the reference was to Kashmir and terrorism. There were no prizes for guessing that. And everybody had also come to the conclusion that the military in India had been asked to, come to the fore because the government, because of political considerations, did not wish to say the things that the military was asked to say. But unfortunately, subsequent events have not met that promise. And furthermore, the international situation has also changed. And with US exit from Afghanistan, I think it's lost quite a lot of interest. It's lost major part of its interest and wishes to focus on South China Sea and China in particular. Now, therefore, there's greater responsibility on people of goodwill in Pakistan and India to shoulder this responsibility themselves. And but I must say that since then, things have really nosedived. And I cannot but, take notice of the polarizing policies. And I was aghast, I'm sure, as a large number of Indians of goodwill were, when previously only the Muslims in Kashmir were, were attacked and were the targets of extremists. But now at Haridwar, there were speeches which are unbelievable. We're asking for genocide of Muslims. All this has an impact on the situation in our region, and hence I feel that there's greater responsibility on us. Now, we all know that war is not an option, and I'm not talking about nuclear war. That, of course, only a madman will think. Even a conventional war is not possible. I mentioned that in my book. There are 9 or 10 occasions when we've either gone to war or have been near a war situation. And the last one was Kargil. Nothing has been achieved. And after that, we had an aerial combat between Pakistan and India. I don't need to remind you of the details because I don't wish to spoil the atmosphere. And you know what happened. And the pilot was returned by Pakistan as a matter of goodwill. But I don't think it generated any goodwill. This is another unfortunate aspect of the whole thing. So now with this situation, what are we supposed to suggest? You asked me to wrap up in 4 or 5 minutes. First, we need to resume the dialogue. And since you said Mani Shankar is there, even if he had not been here, I would have repeatedly, I would have stressed what he has repeatedly said, that there's a need for an uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue. Because my study, my understanding South Asian situation is that if we don't talk to each other, the situation is bound to get worse. It just cannot improve. Then apart from that, I think we need to focus on our media. I must express very honestly, I've been very disappointed by large sections of Indian electronic media. There's been much more reasoned debate in some of the print media in India, and I follow that. but at large, I've been told this has happened. The media is adopting policies which are more or less similar to that advocated by influential BJP leaders and sections of opinion. And that, I'm told, is because of corporatization of the media. I don't wish to go into details, but I think this needs to be noticed. And many of you and I have taken part in part to dialogues. And my suggestion to the organizers would be, instead of inviting us, they should spend, even if they spent half as much resources and time on inviting media from the two countries, it would do a much better, it would yield much better results. Then I would say hold the SARC meeting, because I've just to rush through in 5 or 6 minutes. It's amazing that India and Pakistan can meet each other at Shanghai Cooperation Organization meetings, where China is undoubtedly the most powerful country. But it amazes me that India does not wish to hold SARC meetings, where it is undoubtedly the most, it's the richest and the biggest country, but it prefers to meet under the auspices of SARC. But that's for thinking Indians to decide. And I would then say, what else? I would just quickly wrap up and say that there's need for partner media. There's need to, and I would, from my own experience, we need to station correspondents of Pakistan and Indian newspapers, at least in capitals, if not in major cities, so that our people can see each other in a more humane light rather than through government spokesmen. And I realized when I was foreign minister, we had representatives in Indian media. And I could, not only through them, but also I had links with the media in India and in Pakistan. And I realized that it was very helpful to me as foreign minister in carrying the dialogue forward. Now, in the end, I'd like to say, since no giant steps are really, it's not possible to suggest those, even baby steps that one has been repeatedly referring to have not started. Let's say a more liberal visa regime. Pakistan has a much more liberal visa regime than India has. Religious pilgrimage. There's the Katas Raj temple. There's the Hinglaj Mata temple in Balochistan. And I remember that Katas Raj was, when it was, work was done on it, major work was done. Mr. L.K. Advani visited Pakistan. And I'm very happy that recently the Supreme Court of Pakistan ordered the industrialists, at this point, as they took suo motu notice, that when water had been drained out, they asked the industrialists to fill the water. So in the end, I'd like to say, yes, I'm looking forward to useful suggestions from participants here. Thank you for asking me to initiate.
Thank you very much, Kasuri Saab. Is Yashwant Sinha Saab around? Yashwant Sinha ji?
Yes,
Yashwant
yes,
Sinha ji?
Yes, I'm around.
Please speak. Please speak.
Thank you, Mr. O.P. Shah.
Please offer your comments in next 5 minutes, please. Yashwant ji,
Okay.
former foreign minister and former finance minister. Yashwant Sinha. He will be followed by Farooq Abdullah and then Mushahid Hussain Saab.
Thank you, Mr. O.P. Shah. I'm grateful to you for organizing this webinar on Indo-Pak relations, and especially on the issue of how we can pursue the goal of peace between the two countries. And thank you also for giving me this opportunity to be able to meet with and see many friends in this conclave. We have just heard Mr. Kasuri. Khurshid is an old friend. I'm very happy to see it. You know, I was reading somewhere that foreign policy is merely an extension of the domestic policy of any country. We are all aware of that. And therefore, the domestic policies, domestic situation, which obtains in either Pakistan or India has also a bearing on its foreign policy, especially neighborhood policy and especially a difficult policy and relationship like India and Pakistan have had. Some of us here from India have not the best of relationship with the government of India. And I must tell you that we still are in a position to express our views without let or hindrance and without anyone coming and telling us that you must shut up and not speak anymore. I have been doing it quite frequently whenever I have got an opportunity. But I'd like to make a point. Nations are long-term entities. They do live from moment to moment, but it does not mean that one moment will overwhelm a nation. Khurshid was referring to some of the developments in India. I'd like to assure him that Indian law is taking its course, and there are fringe elements, and I call this even the fringe of the fringe. And these are mad people who we should not give importance to by spending time discussing what they said. This is exactly probably what they want. But coming back to the relationship between India and Pakistan, most of our friends are aware, and Khurshid particularly because he was foreign minister when I was the foreign minister of India. And we had arrived at a very, very seminal agreement on 6th January 2004, when Prime Minister Vajpayee had visited Islamabad.
You have gone mute. Yashwantji, you have gone mute.
It must have happened automatically. So I was saying that the 6th January 2004 statement was a very significant statement and was a very good starting point for improving Indo-Pak relationship. Now, what happened subsequently is well known. I don't have to repeat it. But the point I'd like to make is that all of us who have assembled here today at the invitation of Mr. O.P. Shah have done so because we believe in long-lasting peace between India and Pakistan. We don't represent the fringe, we don't represent the hawks, we don't represent the extremist elements in both the countries. I would dare say that we represent the moderate, thoughtful elements in this country, which I'm sure is a majority both in India and Pakistan. And we have to take this forward. Governments will come and go, but the civil society, the population of both the countries will continue. And I can tell you from personal experience, through my visits to Pakistan and various places in Pakistan, that the people of Pakistan want peace with India. The people of India want peace with Pakistan. And therefore, let's not, the governments of the two countries, even if they are not on the friendliest of terms, disturb this urge of the people. It is our responsibility as serious and senior citizens of our respective countries to ensure that governments act according to the wishes of the people of the two countries. How do we go forward? We are all aware of the fact that India and Pakistan relationship is given to accidents. One little accident here, one little accident here ruins the whole atmosphere. And many engagements have been broken off because of some accident or the other. terrorism remains a very basic and core issue for India, just as there are core issues for Pakistan. But my suggestion today will be that if the government or government's representatives are not doing it, is it possible for us to put all the issues that India has vis-a-vis Pakistan and Pakistan has vis-a-vis India? Let's prepare a complete list of those issues. There will be, at the end of it, when we compare the two lists, there will be some which will be common between India and Pakistan. There will be some which will not be common. There will be some which will be more contentious. Therefore, let the civil society in the two countries start discussion on those which are more contentious, then going on to those which are less contentious, while promoting those on which there is agreement. This is the way, to my mind, to proceed forward. And I would suggest that all of us take an interest in this and congratulate Mr. O.P. Shah once again for having given us the opportunity to come together and exchange our views. Thank you. I am done. Mr. O.P. Shah.
I think Shah Saab had suggested next speaker to be Farooq Abdullah Saab. So I think Farooq Abdullah Saab should start. Farooq Saab, आप हैं?
Farooq Saab is on mute. I think he will have to unmute.
Unmute कर लें आप.
फारूक साहब आपको अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा.
अब सुन रहे हैं?
जी हाँ सुन रहे हैं.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
सुनाई दे रहा है.
तो मैं बहुत बहुत मुबारक करता हूँ ओपी शाह साहब को कि उन्होंने इसका ये शुरू की ये बात फिर से. जरूर हम सब चाहते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान और पाकिस्तान में कोई रास्ता निकले दोस्ती का, और जरूर हम जानते हैं कि हालात कैसे हैं, दोनों तरफ कशीदा हालात हैं, मगर कोशिश करनी जरूरी है क्योंकि उसके सिवा कोई रास्ता नहीं निकल सकता. और अभी यशवंत सिन्हा ने भी फरमाया अभी कि हुकूमतें आती हैं हुकूमतें जाती हैं मगर मुल्क सरवाइव करते हैं. उन मुल्कों के सरवाइव करने के लिए कुछ मुद्दे बहुत अहम हैं जिनको हम लोगों ने बहुत बड़ी जबरदस्ती से सोचना पड़ेगा और उस पर अमल करना पड़ेगा. पहले तो मामला कश्मीर का जरूर है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है. हम कितना इसको छुपाने की कोशिश करें, मगर कश्मीर का एक मुद्दा है जो दोनों मुल्कों में फसाद की एक जड़ है. और उसके साथ साथ एक और मसला जो शुरू हो गया है वो पानी के तकसीम का है, उसमें भी झगड़ा होने वाला है. मैं देखता हूं कि आने वाले वक्त में वो भी एक अहम मसला होगा. बाकी छोटे छोटे मसले होंगे वो तो तय हो सकते हैं, मगर इनको कैसे तय किया जाए. अभी इन्होंने खुद कहा कि हुकूमत जो है वो अलग सोचती है, उनका तरीका सोचने का अलग है, क्या मुल्क के लोगों का भी देखना पड़ता है, इसमें भी कोई शक नहीं है. अभी जो हरिद्वार में हुआ है उससे जरूर हम में तशवीश जरूर है, मगर हम वो समझते हैं बिल्कुल जैसे यशवंत सिन्हा जी ने कहा, एक फ्रेंच है, ऐसे लोग हैं मुल्कों में, हर मुल्क में ऐसे लोग हैं जहाँ पे जो अलग अलग इस तरह के सोचते हैं, मगर उनको हम ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंस दें तो वो ठीक नहीं है. मगर हमें भी अफसोस लगता है कि हमारे वजीर आजम ने इसके बारे में कुछ भी नहीं कहा. ये हमें तशवीश देती है जरूर, और मैं समझता हूँ कि इसकी तरफ हम लोगों को जो हिंदुस्तान के रहने वाले हैं, यहाँ के लोग हैं, हमें इस पे जरूर गम है और दुख है कि ऐसी बातें हो सकती हैं हमारे मुल्क में 75 साल की आज़ादी के बाद. तो ये भी एक खतरा है, खतरे की घंटी बज रही है जिसकी तरफ हम आंखें बंद नहीं कर सकते। मगर कैसे रास्ता आगे निकाला जाए, क्योंकि न वहाँ के लोग यहाँ आ सकते हैं, न हमारे लोग वहाँ जा सकते हैं। कसूरी साहब ने बहुत अच्छा कहा कि अगर मीडिया जो है वो एक दूसरे के वतन में जाएं, वहाँ बात करें, कोई रास्ता निकालने की बात करें, तो
मैसेज की
मेरे ख्याल से मेरा ये आप सुन रहे हैं मेरी बात को?
हाँ, प्लीज।
So the question is not a bad idea floated by Kasuri Sahab that the media people should go and meet each other and try and see, and rather than putting all sorts of news that they put, which creates more bitterness between the two nations. I think that should be avoided as much as possible if you really want peace. No doubt, war is not an option which we should think of or give any importance to. But situation on our borders is tense, whether it is on the Chinese front or whether it's on the Western front. People do feel frightened. Terrorism is an issue which has been there for a long time. But then if you wait that the last gun will stop firing and then we will talk, that is not going to happen. Therefore, if you have to catch the bull by the horn, time is now. Don't wait till the situation becomes so worse that we have no options left to find a solution with peace. Peace is vital. Peace is vital for development of both the nations. We are going through major crises with these infections of viruses that is now hitting not only the subcontinent, but the whole world. Economy is on the doldrums. People are getting poorer and poorer every day. And we see this happening. And if this continues, this illness continues in the world, I wonder whether we'll be able to survive and see a better future. Therefore, with all these things around us, it is important that all of us who may be of different ideologies, different thinking, that we come together on certain points which are vital. That is finding peace. And peace can only be found by not rhetorics which create bitterness. Let us stop bitterness rhetorics and start thinking of how do we win hearts of people rather than losing hearts of people. How rightly Ashwin Sinha said that people on both countries, majority of them, want to see a better relation between these two nations. We also feel that the people want better relations. And how do we go about it? That is the main question. That is the hard thing to find. And if we all together think and work together and without bitternesses with each other, let us find a way forward whereby it will be easier for not only the governments of the two countries to work together, but for the people also to work together. I hope that this meeting that has been organized by Mr. Upisha will pave a way for a better future for these two nations and the people who live in these nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. Mushahid Hussain Saab, and then we have Norik Farooq also from Islamabad. Mushahid Hussain Saab first. Mushahid Hussain Saab. Mushahid Hussain Saab.
I think he's on mute. He will need to unmute himself.
Till then, we have Noreen Farooq, Member of Parliament. Noreen Farooq, Mrs. Noreen Farooq, please. She did just send me a slip saying that she would like to speak now. Noreen Farooq, probably there is something she can't hear. So also Mushahid Hussain Saab. Javed Jabbar Sahab, will you take over?
Can you hear
Former
me?
Information Minister, Government of Pakistan.
Can you hear me, Shah Sahab? Are you able to hear me? Can you hear me?
We are all able to hear you.
Acha. Well, I'm a poor substitute for Mushahed Hussain and Noreen Ibrahim, and being called in as a stand-in is not exactly my fault. Oh, is that Noreen Ibrahim suddenly on the
Ji,
screen?
Assalamu alaikum. Ji, ji.
Look at your sense of timing. Just as I was about to address the whole of South Asia,
I'm sorry.
You deprived me of the privilege, but please, I cede my space to you. It is your time. It is your turn. Please go ahead. Sahab, Noreen Sahiba is here. Okay.
Ji, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know कि वहाँ अभी time हमारा same ही है शायद. I'm sorry I have to rush in because I am at a training session in Karachi, and अभी हमारा lunch break था, so I had 10 minutes, so I thought I would just join you and say a few words. So this book launch, the main theme was towards peace, how the two countries can make it possible for the two countries that we could come into an agreement of peace. So I hope most of the participants here understand Urdu, so I will be bilingual if that is okay with everyone.
Perfectly all right. Please do.
Ji, thank you. So मेरा जो बात मैं करना चाह रही हूँ कि एक बात हम दोनों ममालिक के जो अवाम हैं वो ये बहुत अच्छी तरह जानते भी हैं और समझते भी हैं कि हम एक अमन चाहते हैं दोनों ममालिक में, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ हम ये देखते हैं कि तकसीम हिंद के बाद से इंडिया पाकिस्तान के लिए थ्रेट है और पाकिस्तान इंडिया के लिए थ्रेट है। जबकि अवाम क्या चाहती है, अवाम को तो मतलब अगर बेसिक राइट्स की बात की जाए तो खुराक चाहिए, शेल्टर चाहिए, उनको एजुकेशन चाहिए, उनको हेल्थ चाहिए। तो किस तरह एक कौम प्रोग्रेस कर सकती है कि जब हम अपनी वेलफेयर की तरफ किस तरह जा सकते हैं, जबकि हम ज्यादातर अपनी मुल्क का जो पैसा है वो हम डिफेंस पे लगा दें, और उस तमाम फैक्टर्स को, उन इश्यूज को हम वन बाय वन देखना चाहेंगे। तो सबसे पहली बात जो है वो मैं समझती हूँ कि जो मेन इशू है इस तमाम प्रोसेस में वो कश्मीर का इशू है, क्योंकि हम आगे बढ़ ही नहीं रहे हैं इस इशू की वजह से। तो मैंने अपने आर्टिकल में भी यही लिखा था, क्या उसमें हम फिर ये देखें, मतलब मैं किसी पे इल्जाम तराशी नहीं करना चाहती, मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि अगर हम देखें कि क्या इंडिया वो सेकुलर स्टेट है जिसका वो दावा करते थे, क्या इंडिया में आज माइनॉरिटी सेफ हैं? इसी तरह क्या पाकिस्तान वही पाकिस्तान है जो जिन्ना का पाकिस्तान था, कि जहां पर मतलब हमें भी अपने गिराबा में भी झांकना चाहिए। मैं किसी एक मुल्क की वो नहीं बात कर रही। तो इन तमाम चीजों को देखते हुए मेरी नजर में जो एक बात आती है कि अगर इंडिया के पार्लियामेंट में अगर मिनिस्टर्स खड़े होकर ये बात करते हैं कि हमने जो आज हिंद देवता की पॉलिसीज हैं उनके साथ आगे बढ़ना है, और फिर इसी तरह एशिया में उनका जो एक किरदार है वो उसको they want to bring that forward. So then how can we have peace in the region? And when we say कि if India wants to claim कि भाई हमने कश्मीर में तो कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं की हुई, तो अगर नहीं की हुई तो फिर आपने कर्फ्यू क्यों लगाया, क्यों इंटरनेशनल मीडिया वहाँ अलाउड नहीं है, क्यों वहां पर लोगों को हर चप्पे चप्पे पर आपने वहां पे ये बंद किए हुए हैं रास्ते। मुझे एक कोई बंदा बता रहा था कि हमें एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने में कोई 10 चेक पॉइंट से गुजरना पड़ता है। और फिर और बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो हम लिखते भी रहते हैं। तो इस तरह के सेमिनार्स करने, इस तरह की कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करने, हम आर्टिकल्स लिख लें, बुक्स लिख लें, लेकिन आई डोंट नो हाउ फार कैन वी गो। माय क्वेश्चन इज कि लिख लिया हमने, आज आपकी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आप लोगों ने मुझे इनवाइट किया, लेकिन इसका इम्पैक्ट कैसे लाएंगे लोगों के अंदर, how it's going to affect and how it's going to change the thinking of our lawmakers जो हम बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पर, हम इसको कितना आगे ले जा सकते हैं। तो मेरी नजर में मेन इशू मैं समझती हूँ कि कश्मीर का ही है। जब आर्टिकल 35A और 370 उन्होंने खत्म कर दिया, तो उसके बाद फिर किस तरह बात आगे बढ़ेगी, स्पेशली 35A। अगर हम उस एक खित्ते के लोगों को उनका एक बुनियादी हक, उनका जो राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन है, वही नहीं दे पा रहे, तो फिर इंडिया किस तरह क्लेम कर सकता है कि वो एक सेक्युलर स्टेट है? इट हैज बिकम, इन माय व्यू, इट हैज बिकम प्योर हिंदू स्टेट, जहां माइनॉरिटीज को कोई तहफ़्फ़ुज़ हासिल नहीं है। सो I think this should be the main point on which we must all debate. Unfortunately, I won't be able to hear all of you, but I hope कि इसकी कोई recording हो जो मैं बाद में सुन सकूं, या मुझ तक कोई points आप लोगों के मिल जाएं. So I would be very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Balveer Punch, former member of parliament from Delhi. Your next 4-5 minutes, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Shah, I must congratulate you that because you are a born optimist. The introduction you wrote to the book, it said that you have been chasing India-Pakistan peace since 1991. And the title of the book itself says, In Pursuit of Peace and Improving Indo-Pak Relations. Now, I don't know whether you have moved 5 inches, 3 inches, 1 mile from where you started in 1991. And I will like to go a little further. You know, we got independence in 1947. Pakistan was born in 1947. Now almost 73, 74 years have passed. We had different governments in India, different shades, right from Nehru, Congress, to VP Singh, I.K. Gujral, and then Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and finally now Narendra Modi. So we had governments of all shades in India. Similarly, we had governments of all hues in Pakistan. You had dictators. You had the founder of Pakistan, Jinnah, presiding over the government for the first year or so. Unfortunately, he died early. And then you had military dictatorship like Musharraf, Ayub. Then you had Democrats like Mr. Bhutto, Nawaz Sharif. But the fact remains, India and Pakistan relations was always hostile. There was hostility in 1947. There is a hostility even today. Some of the speakers try to make out as if the polarization has taken place post Narendra Modi. Damn it, the first war between India and Pakistan took place when Nehru was the Prime Minister. At that time, we had a war in Kashmir. In 1971, it was Indira Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi of Congress, who was the Prime Minister. 65, it was Lal Bahadur Shastri. And then Kargil happened when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. So it has nothing to do with individuals. There is something fundamentally wrong. I have gone through most of the articles published in the book, and particularly the ones written by Pakistanis. They all are harping on Kashmir. Now, let me tell you, as one of my friends writing Tathagat Roy in this book very rightly said, Kashmir is the most prominent symptom of the disease. It is not the disease. It is not the disease. It is a symptom of the disease. And you have to do an honest introspection why India-Pakistan relationships have been under boil right from 1947, irrespective of the color of the government on either side. Some people spoke about secularism and democracy in India and India being a Hindu state. India can never be a Hindu state. Pakistan is an Islamic state. And you are talking about the genocide of Muslims in India? I'm sorry to use this word, it's absolutely rubbish. At the time of partition, Muslims constituted 9 to 10% of the India's population. Today, they constitute almost 15 to 16%. They have more than 3 or 4 times than what they were in 47. And you are talking about a genocide. And what happened to the Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs in Pakistan and Bangladesh? In Pakistan, the share of Sikhs and Hindus in Pakistan at the time of partition was 16%. They're less than 2% today. There are virtually no Sikhs and no Buddhists. In Bangladesh, they were 30% Buddhists and Hindus. Now they are down to less than 8%. So please don't talk about genocide. And if you are so much concerned about the Muslims of India, please pay some attention to the Muslims of Xinjiang in China. What is happening to the Muslims in China? The fact is, the very philosophy of Pakistan. After all, we are one people. We come from the same race. We have the same genetic stock. Our language is common. We like the same food, same music. What separates us? And why did you go a separate way? Why did you choose to vivisect your own motherland? For the simple reason, you felt that you could not live with Kafirs. And particularly after you had this illusion that you had ruled the Kafirs for 800 years, and in an independent India, after the British have gone, how will you live with them as equals? And therefore, you choose to divide the country, and we wish you well. Please stay. But somewhere you have a feeling, you go to the Pakistan government website, it traces its origin to the attack by Muhammad bin Qasim in 712. They say the first brick for the foundation of Pakistan was put when Muhammad bin Qasim subdued and ran over Sindh. And if you are going to link yourself with all these people who have come as invaders, destroyed the local culture, demolished the temples, forcibly converted them, then where is the scope for friendship? You may talk anything. I heard Kasturi Sahab say genocide. कहाँ का genocide है? Population तो आप देखिए जरा, और Hindus और Sikhs के साथ और Buddhists के साथ क्या हो रहा है? And I think if we want to improve India and Pakistan relations, we need to do 3 things. Number 1, cleanse this idea of kafir and kufr. Number 2, stop telling lies. Or number 3, in fact, Sudhindra Kulkarni, I don't have the time to read. He has replied this question very well in his article, Sudhindra Kulkarni. I'll just read out. Even though the demand for a plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir as mandated by the relevant UN resolution is often voiced by Pakistani leaders, they know its impracticability all too well. Since 1947, when Kashmir dispute originated with India and Pakistan, gaining independence from British rule, a lot of water has flown under the bridges in all the subcontinent regions of the erstwhile princely state Jammu, the 2 sides of Kashmir, Gilgit, Baltistan, and Ladakh. One part of Ladakh has actually been under the control of China, and so is Shaktgam Valley. There has also been a significant demographic change of irreversible nature in Gilgit, Baltistan, and Pakistani side of Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, what they call. Moreover, the conditions specified by the UN for conducting a plebiscite can no longer be fulfilled by either Pakistan or India. So, how do you talk about Kashmir? As very rightly said, And I went through another article, I just take 1 more minute, by Mr. Bist, the former ambassador to Pakistan ambassador to India. He has put 5 conditions. And 5 conditions, I really don't know what to say. The 5 conditions, were India and Pakistan relations peaceful when these things were not there? They are very recent developments. Restore 370, restore 35A. अरे जब 370 था 35 है तब तो इंडिया और पाकिस्तान में क्या शांति थी या कश्मीर में शांति थी? What are you talking? Peace has nothing to do with it. Peace has only one thing to do with it. You accept the way we are. We are a Hindu dominant country, but we are a secular country. And you are an Islamic nation. We don't grudge that. We accept you as you are. You accept us as we are. Then you talk to us, and then there is a possibility of peace. We all want peace. We all want, as I said earlier, people on both sides of the border, they are from a common genetic stock. They speak the same language. They aspire for peace. Their aspirations are same. So have mercy on them, people on the both sides. Be realistic, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Mr. Manishankar Iyer, please. Mr. Manishankar Iyer.
Please unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
One distinguished Indian.
I think of all,
Yes, Mr. Iyer.
no, if Mr. Jabbar would like to take the floor, I'm happy to yield it to
After him, after you, Jawar would like to listen
Okay.
to you and then speak.
I think he would prefer that because that will give him the opportunity to refute what I have to say.
Yeah.
Good. Of all the participants in today's seminar thus far, the only one with whom I fundamentally disagree is not any Pakistani, but my old friend Balbir Punj. I would like our Pakistani friends to kindly note that Balbir Punj's view is as partisan as mine is going to be in terms of domestic Indian politics. So I do not think we need to be distracted by whether Pakistan traces its origin to Mohammed bin Qasim or not. What we need to do is to look at the current situation. And in looking at the current situation, since I have only 5 minutes, and it takes me 5 minutes to clear my throat, let me focus on 2 issues, which I think are the core issues for each side. On the Pakistani side, the core issue is Kashmir. And we have moved. We've moved on Kashmir. Not a single Pakistani participant, except Mr. Kasuri, and not even Mr. Kasuri actually, has brought up the 4-point formula and the larger solution to the Kashmir issue, which we almost arrived at under the aegis of Mr. Kasuri and his boss, General Pervez Musharraf. Now, if we can't make that at least the starting point of where we are to get to, then do we have to reinvent the wheel? I am very disappointed that no one in the book, as far as I've been able to see, no Pakistani in the book, as far as I'm able to make out, except Mr. Kasuri, has referred to the progress that was made when we talked about Kashmir. It shows not even Mr. Basit talks about it. The fact is that we did talk Kashmir and we did make progress, and were it not for a domestic development in Pakistan, on that basis, we would have by now resolved the Kashmir issue. But on the core issue from the Indian point of view, terrorism, there is a nod in the right direction from Mr. Kasuri, but even he is unwilling to accept that the January 2004 agreement that Pakistani territory would not be used for terrorism against India has only been observed in the breach in the last 20 years or so. And therefore, I would hope that if the Pakistan side
is as willing to be open to discuss the question of terrorism as we have shown ourselves to be open as a nation, not as a government. This government is a disaster, and we will have to wait for it to cease being in operation to make any progress on India-Pakistan relations. But as a generic issue, as an issue that affects us, whether Mr. Modi is Prime Minister or not, I think we've demonstrated that there is a large body of opinion in India which is in favor of discussing Kashmir with Pakistan and attempting to arrive at a consensus. Mr. Kasuri almost made the grade, and because he couldn't quite make the grade, he never made the trip he deserved to make to Oslo to receive the Peace Prize. But that may still happen if only we take what Mr. Kasuri succeeded in doing as the starting point of any resumption of dialogue between India and Pakistan. But this does not apply to the question of terrorism. There was an unambiguous statement by the Pakistan side in January 2004 that they would not allow their territory to be used for purposes of terrorism. And while perhaps it could be explained to us as to what it is that is standing in the way of their being able to fulfill that commitment, the fact is that Pakistan remains in denial. And therefore, we are forced to bring it up and bring it up in increasingly harsh terms. So we have to realize that for both hands to clap, on the one side, India must agree to talk Kashmir to Pakistan, preferably on the basis of the formula or the formulae that had been decided mutually during the time of Mr. Kasuri's foreign ministership. And I'm very, very proud to have been a college friend of his, because he has been the greatest star that has shone on the India-Pakistan horizon in the last 75 years. But as far as terrorism is concerned, unless and until the Pakistanis are willing to at least discuss this matter with us, instead of distracting statements like, yeah, what are you doing in Balochistan? So I don't know what we are doing in Balochistan, because you've never been able to prove to us that we've done anything in Balochistan. And if we are doing it in Balochistan, I condemn it. If we are doing anything of that same kind in Pakistan anywhere, I condemn it. I don't think terrorism from India is any solution to the problem. But for that very same reason, terrorism which is Pakistan-based is no solution to the problem either. And the only way we can get around all these issues and the very many other issues, including water sharing that Farooq Abdullah mentioned, including that and several other issues, we can only resolve by having an uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue. Until we start such a dialogue, I think weaving in the air solutions to problems is a waste of everybody's time. It is for the two governments to get down to it. I would prefer this to be done in the open by having a scheduled series of dialogues at the Wagah-Atari border, but I'm not prepared to have these discussions take place in spots like Bangkok and Amsterdam, which have other distractions which are common to Indians and Pakistanis. I would much rather that we do this meeting on our subcontinent and that we find subcontinental solutions to subcontinental problems. I am convinced that many of our participants are right in saying that the vast majority of Pakistanis do not dislike India, and the vast majority of Indians do not dislike Pakistan. It's only the governments in the two countries that dislike each other. And as one concession to Mr. Punj, I'll agree that governments of whatever hue in Pakistan or in India do dislike the other. But the people of India and the people of Pakistan, through all these changes of government, have been consistent in wanting us to arrive at some kind of a solution. And I think the suggestion made, I think, by Yashwant Sinha, that we list the subjects that we feel are apt for a dialogue and conduct that dialogue in our civil society, so that as and when the people of India see sense and stop anti-Muslim elements from coming to power in our country and basing their politics on anti-Pakistan and anti-Muslim feelings, if we can have a sort of agenda or at least some solution ready, then whenever a sensible government comes to power in India and a sensible government comes to power in Pakistan, they would have with them a ready-made set of formulae on which we can go forward and end this ridiculous 75-year conflict between the governments of India and Pakistan that are not shared by the people of either India or Pakistan. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Pakistan Paindabad.
Mr. Javed Jabbar, please.
Mr. O.P. Shah,
Yeah.
may I come in for a moment?
All right, please. After you, Javed Jabbar, sir.
I just want to intervene for a moment to say that while we did not set up any ground rules for discussions today, I think it will be eminently avoidable on our part, on the part of all the participants, to comment on the domestic events of the other country and on the domestic politics of the other country. Many people might be aware of the fact that I have serious differences with the government of India today, but that does not mean that I will start discussing those differences at this forum. That will not be right. So my very humble suggestion is that we keep the internal politics of the two countries apart from this. It's a question of relationship between India and Pakistan. And that is what we should concentrate upon. If we start commenting on what kind of politics there in Pakistan, what kind of politics there in India, where do we end up? This whole discussion will then completely divert from the main thing that we want to discuss today. Thank you.
Javed Jabbar, sir.
Can you hear me, Shah Sahab? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Thank you, Mr. O.P. Shah, for your very gracious invitation to me to contribute to the book, first of all, and to participate in this webinar. It's a privilege to be in the company of 48 or 49 other individuals, and I say or only because the contents part of the book lists 50 contributions. And starting with your own introduction, Mr. Shah, and then the very brief but very enlightened prologue by the former Vice President. So it's a privilege to be in the company of 49 other individuals, far more distinguished than myself. And I think the book offers rich content, constructive even when critical. For example, even where I am, unapologetically and thoroughly biased as a Pakistani, as I say at the very outset of my submission in the book, which is entirely one-sided, but I present reasons for being one-sided. Even then, there are suggestions offered by virtually every participant to the book's content that are thoughtful and that deserve study by the respective foreign offices, that deserve study at the highest level. Heads of state and heads of government are not always known to devote exceptional time to the study of books. They are so wrapped up in the instantness of media, news media, and the events unfolding every 24 hours that I think their reading tends to suffer a great deal. But there is a wealth of information, a background on what has been done so assiduously and so helpfully by a large number of people. Not all of them have contributed to the book, but they have attempted over the past 75 years to improve Pakistan-India relations. So the book is an excellent reference point for policymakers and decision makers in particular, in addition to its value as a part of general discourse. And I hope it stimulates further research and study. Though the majority of the contributors are Indian, it is welcome that there are 7 or 8 or more Pakistanis, about I think 10. And that doesn't devalue the relevance of what they have to say. You may disagree with what Pakistanis have to say vis-a-vis from India's point of view. The disparity in numbers partly matches the disparity in the sizes of the two countries. But I do regret the lack of reasonable gender equity. It is a very male-dominated content, and men, however nice they may be, such as fine examples who have spoken before me, and it is a telling sign that we have had only one woman who unfortunately is not able to stay with us. Now, even though I'm very tempted to respond to some of the points made in a very, I suppose, ultimately constructive way by some of the preceding speakers, I'll try to resist that to the best of my ability. I just want to draw attention to the fact that by coincidence, only yesterday in Pakistan, the Prime Minister has launched for the first time in Pakistan's history a national security policy, which has been evolved after 7 years of consultation across the country, and which sets forth peace and economic development and human welfare, citizen-centric development, rather than the continuation of an antagonistic, militaristic interpretation of what national security is. Despite the fact that we were justified in looking at military security as the only way to ensure our survival, having been separated from part of our country with the majority of the population in 1971, with open intervention by our neighbor on the pretext that refugees had infiltrated into the neighboring country, a pretext that had never been used in international law for the outright invasion of the sovereign territory of another country. Despite that, we have attempted in the national security policy to set forth the fact that we recognize the validity, the legitimacy of the Kashmir issue. And at the same time, we are committed to peace in the region. We are committed to better relations with India, very specifically. And we've covered a whole gamut of subjects in the security policy. I do urge participants of this webinar to have a close look and not be guided or misled by the unfortunate misrepresentation that one saw within minutes on India's social media and the websites of India's conventional media, which gave quotation marks to the effect that Pakistan's security policy says that we will not want war with India for the next 100 years. And this is a statement which has never been uttered by anyone. Of course, everyone in Pakistan aspires to that. There should never be a war with India. But to illustrate how distortive is the role of news media in completely mutilating the scope for improvement, it's a classic example of how, I'm sorry to say, Indian news media has far outpaced Pakistani media's hysteria. Which brings me to the point of referring to my own humble contribution to the book, where one of the points I have made is, it is illustrative of how news media in both countries, but more so in Indian news media's case in particular, because it is the larger country, no attempt has been made since we attempted this dialogue in 1990s with the South Asian Media Association. No attempt is made by the leadership of Indian news media to start a dialogue with Pakistani news media's leadership. We all talk about political dialogue, but what about the dialogue between the people who hold hostage the political leadership of both countries, and particularly the Indian leadership, need to be liberated from the jingoism propagated by news media. Without naming anyone, I just want to say that this concept of we being one people should be seen in the larger context of we being one humanity. Yes, we are all human beings across the planet, but nation-state concepts are the current basis for living peacefully and with identity. By no means can you say that we are one people ethnically, that we are one people linguistically, that we are one people culturally. Even Muslims within Pakistan are diverse. The Pashtun and the Urdu speakers, the Baloch and the Punjabi speakers. So how can anyone say an elected representative from India, who I do not wish to name, I don't want to get into this point scoring match, please recognize the infinite diversity of these extraordinary, beautiful countries called India and Pakistan. Pakistan is not a breakaway state. There was no such thing as an Indian state before 1947. We are two new entities, and we must respect the validity of each other if we are to go forward. And lastly, I have no wish to again conclude on this acrimonious note. But when my dear esteemed friend, Mani, says that I don't know what's happening in Balochistan, there is someone called a naval commander, Kulbhushan Yadav, who is arrested and confesses, and we can go into the circumstances of the confession. He is a serving Indian naval officer charged with the task of promoting subversion in Balochistan. I rest my case. I thank you. I must acknowledge my respect for the excellent positive tone of what has been said by preceding speakers. But I just want to point out that it's Mr. Yashwant Sinha's statement that let us not refer to each other's domestic conditions. His own honorable self, who I immensely respect, said in his own observation that foreign policy is a reflection of domestic reality. You cannot afford to ignore what we are within each other. Hindutva is no longer an internal phenomenon. It menaces its neighbors. Bangladeshis will not get a visa for India if the Indian consulate sees a Pakistani stamp on their passport. Several Bangladeshi friends have told me this. So let us be realistic and let us look at it holistically. Let us initiate back channel, secret dialogue. Let us resume quiet track 2 dialogue, and let's get the media leadership to start speaking with each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Javed Jabbar Saab. Professor Tathagat Roy. I know several friends are raising hands, and I'll give them chance as much as possible. Your next 4 minutes, Tathagat Roy, former governor of Meghalaya.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. O.P. Shah, and thank all the other participants before whom I'm getting a chance to just put in my 2 cents about what I have termed as a will-o'-the-wisp in my short article on in the pursuit of peace in improving Indo-Pak relations. You can understand that when I called it a will-o'-the-wisp, it is something that which is almost unachievable. You can't catch a will-o'-the-wisp. But is anything possible at all? That is a point that I would like to put across to you for your consideration. I do not expect that the participants from Pakistan would agree with me, and I'm quite sure that quite a few from India
like Mr. Manishankar Iyer, would not agree with me, but nevertheless, here I go. I have pointed out in my article, which Balbir Punji has repeated, that Kashmir is not the problem. A lot of Pakistani speakers here have said that Kashmir seems to be the problem, but the Kashmir is not the problem. It is merely a symptom of the problem. You have to look at the genesis of Pakistan. Genesis of Pakistan lay in the fact that the Jinnah's two-nation theory, which forms the very basis of the birth of the country, postulates that it is not possible for Muslims to live under Indian domination or Hindu domination. And as a result of that, the country needed to be partitioned and a separate area carved out for Muslims. Now, we all know from history that the Muslims in India did not all leave for Pakistan. In Rump India, that is, we called them India, we called it Indian Union, did not leave all for Pakistan. A very large number of them stayed back, and right now, after Bangladesh has been separated from Pakistan, they are bigger in number than the Muslims in Pakistan. So how do you explain that? There is only one way to explain that, and that is that basically no one wants to leave his home and hearth unless he is forced to do it. I am personally, and my extended family, we are refugees from a country which once upon a time constituted a part of Pakistan. I am talking of East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. Now, we left that country for good. And I'm an Indian citizen for a very long time. Something wrong? Anyway, we left that country for good because of only one reason, that we thought that we could not live there. We could not live there with honor. We had to leave our place where our previous some 14 generations had lived. Be that as it may, let us take the situation today and try to concentrate on some of the points that the other speakers have tried to make. There has been a lot of talk about people. People want. The Noreen Ibrahim said that Awam wants it. Now, people is certainly relevant in India. People choose the government. People seat and unseat the governments. So people are definitely relevant in India. Are people relevant in Pakistan? I am not sure whether all people of Pakistan want peace with India. After all, they have been brought up on certain aspects, which I am constrained to call propaganda, over the last so many years, 75 years, which has made them basically anti-Indian, anti-Hindu. But even if you brush that aside, what are the people of Pakistan? Do they decide the destiny of Pakistan? I don't think so. Even the elected government doesn't do so. It is only the army which does it. As it is said in jest, most countries in the world have an army, but in Pakistan, the army has a country. So the army is not elected by the people, and the raison d'etre of any army is to fight. Now, unless there is someone to fight, why should the army be there? Why should the army have the pride of place that it has in the country of Pakistan? So therefore, it is in the interest of the army to perpetuate Indo-Pakistan tensions. And that is the most unfortunate thing, not Kashmir, that I hold is standing in the way of bettering the relations. There have been exceptional Pakistani generals like General Jahangir Karamat, who had tried to bring in some kind of semblance of amity between the two nations, but it didn't work out. And subsequent conduct of subsequent conduct of the governments has revealed that the government is powerless before the army. Even when Atal Bihari Vajpayee, our Prime Minister, made that epoch-making bus journey to Pakistan, in order to cement the ties between the two countries, we saw it destroyed in a matter of months as a result of the Kargil invasion. So I am very sorry to sound a very sour note at the end of this thing, that it is not an easy task. We all want it. Most Indians, particularly those living far apart from the borders, say the people living in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, they are not bothered about Pakistan. They don't think about Pakistan. On the other hand, the whole of Pakistan, I'm sure, I mean, I have been told that they think of India and how to vanquish India. Now, unless...
Please conclude.
Yes, I am about to conclude. Unless that attitude is corrected, in spite of the fact that Yashwant Sinha said that we need not go into the domestic politics of the country, unless that attitude is corrected, I don't think, or let me put it in a positive way, that attitude must be corrected before we can think of an amity between the two countries. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to have taken too much time.
Thank you very much. Abdul Basit Saab, former High Commissioner. Is Mushahid Hussain Saab here or not?
आप म्यूट पे हैं.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Opisha, and my heartiest felicitations to you on the publication of your very, I think, interesting and timely book. Since I have also contributed, let me, since I have just 4 minutes, I would like to underscore that I have been thinking long and hard as to what Pakistan and India should be doing, whether it makes sense to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, or should Pakistan and India be doing something differently in order to realize different positive results. Unfortunately, since 1914, since this particular government has taken over, and I have served from 2014 to 2017 in India, there were times when you were very upbeat about the prospects, about the future of Pakistan-India relations, but then there were times you were downbeat and concerned that things may not move as we have been trying to. Now, obviously, Pakistan and India relations are. Hello. Can I continue speaking, or some problem?
Sorry, sir. May we request everybody who's not speaking to put themselves on mute, please?
Yeah, what I was trying to say that should Pakistan and India be doing the same thing and then expecting different results, or the time has perhaps come to think more creatively and innovatively? Because if we again, we are up trying or making efforts to break the current log jam, even if we talk to each other, my fear is that we would not be achieving much, because I do not see any flexibility in our basic fundamental positions, and particularly on the core disputes. So unless the two sides gather some political courage, political desire to move ahead differently, only then can perhaps we expect something to come out of these talks. In my view, as I look at it, 5th August 2019 was a bad day for Pakistan-India relations, because no matter how our Indians interpret it, how they look at it, at the history of Pakistan-India relations, it goes without saying that, and as I look at it, and I have experienced this myself,
you cannot really wish away the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. And my own sincere view is that unless this dispute is resolved, there is simply no possibility that Pakistan, India can have a positive trajectory in their relationship. There is simply no possibility. And I have been saying this all along, though people will differ with me, but unless the two countries sit together and discuss this issue and resolve this issue, you will continue to be kind of, taking one step forward and two steps back. You will be pursuing, in my view, somebody called will o' the wisp. These, are the peace will remain delusion. So it is important to really see as to what ways and means are available to the two countries, and that can be done behind the scenes. I am not against behind the scene efforts, but the question is India really, because after 5th August 2019, India has added more complications to the bilateral equation, especially in the context of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Now, I think the onus is on India as to what India should be doing in order to making the environment somewhat conducive for bilateral engagement. Is India ready to improve the situation in Kashmir, release political prisoners, release the Hurriyat leadership, demilitarize the region, allow Human Rights Watch and other international human rights, UN Human Rights Commission to visit Kashmir? All these steps, in my view, would help. And then what about the Indian Supreme Court? I do not know why the 23 petitions are still pending with them. So, and then we all know that on 4th April 2018, the Indian Supreme Court was very categorical in its ruling that Article 370 can neither be changed nor revoked nor can taken be out of the Constitution. So all these things, the Indian measures have complicated the situation. Now, in my view, the onus is on India. In Pakistan, I can tell you there is national consensus to improve relations with India, to normalize relations with India. Someone said that, oh no, Pakistan, the will of Pakistan does not count. I would strongly contest that. The public opinion does matter in Pakistan as well. And Pakistan people do want to have a good, normal relation with India, revive SAARC, have regional connectivity. But the question is India ready as the larger country to really show magnanimity, generosity, and to resolve the core issue once and for all, so that we keep not, we stop facing recurrent periodic log jams in our. It is, we all can come up with the different possibilities, or the talks are important, do this, do that. But at the end of the day, I think the onus lies with India. And I hope that at some point in future, India will realize that if it wants to realize its regional and global aspirations, how essential, sine qua non it is for India to resolve its problems with Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is Mr. Tarigami for a couple of minutes, please. Tarigami sir.
Please unmute yourself, Mr. Tarigami.
You have to unmute first, then you, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please speak.
सबसे पहले मैं शाह साहब आपको दिली मुबारकबाद पेश करता हूं। एक इन परस्यूट ऑफ पीस जो आपने मेहनत की और हम सबको एक साथ जमा किया, ये एक कठिन मामला रहा है दो ममालिक के बीच में ताल्लुकात का सिलसिला। ऐसा नहीं है कि लोगों की तादाद, एक्सपर्ट्स की तादाद और बाअसर कुव्वतें भी मौजूद रही हैं, हिंदुस्तान में भी पाकिस्तान में भी, जो मुसलसल ये आवाज उठाती रही है, उठाते रहे हैं कि दो ममालिक के बीच में अमन कायम हो, सुलह हो, बातचीत के जरिए मसाइल का हल निकल पाए। लेकिन आज तक काफी उतार चढ़ाव का सामना करना पड़ा इस प्रोसेस को, और हमारे सामने नताइज है। इस तगदों का हासिल हुआ नहीं आज तक, लेकिन फिर भी हमारी अपनी जरूरियात हैं। मैं अवाम की बात करता हूं, पाकिस्तानी अवाम की, हिंदुस्तानी अवाम की, हम सब की ये हमारी जरूरत है कि हम अमन से रहे। और मेरी तजवीज खास तौर पर जो लोग ज्यादा डिप्लोमेटिक सर्कल से, जिनका काफी तजुर्बा रहा है, ताल्लुक रहा है, सिविल सोसाइटी में बाअसर रहे हैं, उनसे मेरी गुजारिश है कि मेरा छोटा सा तजुर्बा बता रहा है कि दोनों ममालिक के ऐवान इक्तिदार जो भी हैं, में एक वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट पैदा हुआ है ओवर द डिकेड्स, क्या अमन कायम ना हो, मसाइल का हल बातचीत के जरिए ना निकले। कई कोशिशें की हैं आज तक, मुसलसल कई इंटरवेंशंस भी रहे हैं, जैसा कि कसूरी साहब हैं हमारे, और हमारी तरफ से भी सिन्हा साहब, या अभी मेरे बहुत ही पुराने दोस्त आयर साहब, और यहाँ और भी साथी हैं जो काफी तगदों में रहे, लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं। किया क्या जाए? मेरी नजर में तकिया करना, इन्हिसार करना, डिपेंड करना रूलिंग क्लासेस पर, रूलिंग ग्रुप्स पर, यह अलग सवाल है। कभी नरमी, कभी गर्मी, और आज के माहौल में जो हमारे हुक्मरान हैं, माशाअल्लाह, दो ममालिक में सुलह हो, अमन हो, फिर उनके पास पूंजी क्या रहेगी, फिर उनके पास सरमाया क्या रहेगा लोगों के पास जाने के लिए। हमें ये समझना होगा, ये कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग सिचुएशन, ये हॉस्टाइल सिचुएशन, इसने एक वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट डेवलप किया है कि वो डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स को अपनाने के लिए, अपना रुख देने के लिए इस्तेमाल करते रहे, पाकिस्तान में भी और हिंदुस्तान में भी। कैसे मुकाबला किया जाए, ये बातचीत बहुत अहम है। अभी ये कदम नहीं सही, कमजोर सही, आपस में हम मिले, कसूरी साहब का सुना, यहाँ के हिंदुस्तान की तरफ से बाअसर लोगों की बातें सुनी, बहुत अच्छा लगा। लेकिन अगर असर पैदा करना है तो मेरी एक ही तजवीज है, पाकिस्तान और हिंदुस्तान के दरमियान सुलह और अमन के मामले को अवाम के बीच लाया जाए, और अगर अवाम को शामिल ना किया जाए, तहरीक का हिस्सा ना बनाया जाए, आयर साहब, आपकी दुआएं, आपकी तगदो अपनी जगह, लेकिन ये जो दर्द है, मैं इसलिए दर्द की बात करता हूं क्योंकि जिस खित्ते के साथ, जिस हिस्से के साथ मेरा ताल्लुक है, मैं तो आप दोनों ममालिक के बड़े रहनुमाओं से एक ही अपील कर लूंगा, बड़े मसाइल कब हल होंगे, लेकिन इतना जरूर कर लीजिए, कुछ ऐसा कर लीजिए कि हमारे दर्द में इजाफा और न हो। आप में कैपेसिटी है काम करने की? क्या आप हमारे दर्द को समझकर इसमें कमी लाने के लिए कुछ करें? एक फेवर होगा। ऐसा न कर पाए, कितना जरूर कर लीजिए ताकि इस दर्द में और इजाफा न हो, तब ही मुमकिन है जब सिविल सोसाइटी की तरफ से डेमोक्रेटिक ओपिनियन एक साथ मिलकर अपनी रोजमर्रा जिंदगी के मामलात की जद्दोजहद में अमन के मामले को भी शामिल कर लें। उस एजेंडे में दो ममालिक के बीच में अमन का जो एस्पिरेशन है हमारे लोगों में, उसको भी जगह दे, बावर कराए, एलीट सेक्शंस को बावर कराए, वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट को और हुक्मरानों को कि आपको वोट मिलना नहीं है इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से, आपको कुर्सी मिलेगी नहीं हमारी दर्द से, हमारे टकराने से। और फिर मैं हैरान हूं, अभी हम सबक हासिल क्या कर लें? अफगानिस्तान में क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ, आज तक भी अभी भी हमारे दोनों ममालिक के हुक्मरानों की कभी कभी नजरें अगर लगी हैं, वो जनता की तरफ कम है, इस सवाल को लेकर बड़े ताकतों की तरफ ज्यादा ध्यान है। उनकी खुशनुदी को ये तजुर्बा नहीं देख रहे हैं कि जो एम्पायर्स की हिस्ट्री है उसका मुजाहिरा भी अफगानिस्तान में हुआ और पता नहीं, खबर नहीं कब निकलना है, कब आना है, कौन बर्बाद हुआ, किसके आंसू बह गए, ये नहीं फिक्र है उनको। और अभी भी हमारी ये कोशिश रही है, कोई नहीं जिक्र करता है कि अफगानिस्तान में लाखों लोग भी हैं, करोड़ों लोग हैं। मैं मुख्तसर कर लूंगा, उनके बारे में भी एक पाकिस्तान हिंदुस्तान मिलकर काम कर लें, उनकी रिहेबिलिटेशन के बारे में भी। मेरा कहने का ये मतलब है कि बड़ी ताकतों के दखल अंदाजी ना हिंदुस्तान के लिए मुफीद है, ना पाकिस्तान के लिए मुफीद है। अगर मुफीद है कोई अमल, वो अमल है कि हम अपने मसाइल को हल करने के लिए ज्यादा न करें, कम से कम इस हकीकत को मान ले कि हमें को एग्जिस्ट करना है, एक साथ मिलकर रहना है, एक दूसरे के वजूद को तस्लीम कर ले। अरे साहब, मैं और कुछ नहीं कहूंगा। यहाँ जो अभी हमारे इस खित्ते में सीज फायर हुआ, छोटा सा कदम है, लेकिन इतनी राहत मिली जिसका अंदाजा नहीं लगाया जा सकता। हमें हमारी गुजारिश यह है, सियासत का मसला, इस पर कई बार फैसले भी हो गए, लेकिन तंग नजर सियासत की वजह से उसको अमलाया नहीं गया। किसको मिलता है, क्या मिलता है, किसी के कद में इजाफा होता नहीं है। तो मेरी नजर में मेरी गुजारिश एक ही है, सिविल सोसाइटी, डेमोक्रेटिक ओपिनियंस इन द होल ऑफ दिस रीजन आर पार अपने एजेंडाज में अमन अमल को भी जगह दे, इसको एक इशू बनाए, इसको एक मुद्दा बनाए, तब जाकर कुछ पेशरफ्त हो सकती है, ताकि ये बारूद की लड़ाई, नफरत की लड़ाई, इसमें कमी आ सके। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you very much. Kapil Kaksap for a couple of minutes, please. And Manjeet Singh Khera for a minute.
Thank you. I won't take more than 4 or 5 minutes at the maximum. First of all, I must thank Hopi Shah Sahab for this monumental initiative to have this book on India-Pakistan relations, pursuit of peace. I think some of the divergences and extreme opinions which are, in a sense, prominent in the book have also emanated during this discussion. And I'm not concerned about that. If there are divergences, extreme views, and those are genuine views, we are here to sort of share each other's views on the issue. I'd like to I just make 5 quick points and not less than 4 minutes. One, geostrategic imperatives of an incumbent superpower and a power, an emergent power which seeks to displace it, is what could be termed, if you recall your Greek philosopher Thucydides, that this is it's a trap. into which India and Pakistan have got into two sides. So in a contextualized framework, the future doesn't look bright in terms of when you contextualize India-Pakistan relations, because we are on two opposite sides of the fence. That's the first point. It imposes limitations of moving forward. At the same time, it doesn't stop us from the very civilizational imperative to have normalized relations between two neighbors who have to live with each other. They've lived with each other 70 years with 4 wars. Let's inshallah hope we live with each other for another 70, 100, 200 years, but in relative normalization and relative peace. My second point is, and I'm glad this has been brought both by Manishankar Iyer, of course, Khurshid Kasuri didn't raise this, but I have looked at Kashmir, I'm a Kashmiri myself, from the strategic, the political, the moral, the ethical, the cultural perspective in its entirety. The only solution, and I'm sorry I'm raising my voice, the only solution is that 4-point formula by which it is a non-territorial approach to a vexed problem which has defied resolution for all these 75 years. And we need to start with that point when we resume the dialogue process. The third point I wish to make is that I start with stating that I'm a petitioner in the Supreme Court against the revocation or nullification of Article 370 and 35A. But the realist in me tells me that neither this government nor the government which will replace it, whether it is 2024 or whenever that happens, are going to restore Article 370. I think in a sense, Abdul Basit Saab in his chapter in the book has also not talked about Article 370. So he's a good friend, always is also a realist in that sense. The prospects, I think, are, but this doesn't in any case absolve the rights of the Kashmiris to continue their struggle for restoration of Article 370, 35A, and every other step which has been taken on 5th of August 2019. I want to make the third point that the poignancy of two brothers, Sikka and Sadiq, is reunited after 75 years of their separation during partition. And this was so poignant that even our press could not but cover it. And if they could unite after 75 years, cannot two countries, India and Pakistan, both civilizational states, approach the issue creatively in a very, very realistic and at the same time an imaginative way forward? I want to say this because at this point of time, not a single person who has made a presentation till now has addressed the issue of what are the pointers. Where are we going forward? May I take the liberty to point out 3 or 4 trends? One is the national security policy of Pakistan. It's a very interesting document, but it has also to take into account that no human security or economic prosperity of Pakistan is feasible until it normalizes relations with India. The 5th point is Siachen. Now, here is an opportunity presented by, and I'm glad my friend Yusuf Tarigami referred to this point, Army Chief has gone on record that we can move forward on Siachen, very, very vital issue, provided the actual ground position line is agreed upon by Pakistan. Here is an issue now for our Pakistani friends to respond to what the Army Chief has said. He won't make a statement off the cuff unless he has a governmental support for it. So therefore, Siachen is an easy, very, as they say, a fruit that can be pickable without much of an effort. Last point, and I think this is very, very important, is that we at civil society level, a point which was made by Yashwant Sinha ji, and also endorsed by others, that let us in the civil society list out what are the issues that we need to discuss. May I suggest that half the job, if not 3/4 of the job, has already been done by O.P. Shah by editing that volume, which has 50 chapters. All those 50 chapters, and I've gone over all 50 in a period of non-stop 16 hours, that they give you all the views, doables in India-Pakistan relations for what can be discussed. I think O.P. Shah's team can perhaps list out these. We don't have to have many conferences. The way forward is possible because the rhetoric from India's side has gone down. Anti-Pakistan rhetoric. This is extremely important. Secondly, it was a rewarding exercise electorally to bash Pakistan. But recent statements of the political leadership of India, and I've marked each statement, have not been anti-Pakistan. This is for our Pakistani friends to observe. Secondly, resumption of Kartarpur corridor was announced at the level of the Home Minister. Why? Anyone could have announced it. So it gives an indication to our friends that even the hardliners can move forward if there is sufficient motivation. Observance of February 24, 25, it's almost a year, not a shot, not a medium machine gun has fired across the line of control. This is a positive development. Otherwise, we keep talking, bashing each other, that doesn't result in anywhere. Lastly, there are also some steps that we have to take. I will take only 30 seconds now. India, central government needs to take some steps on Jammu and Kashmir, which will act as a stimulant for improved relations across the line of control and the border. What are these steps? May I enumerate them? Restoration of political activities in Jammu and Kashmir unhindered by the security forces. Guarantees that there will be no demographic change in Jammu and Kashmir. And despite what has been talked about in the international media, please count the number of people who have got domiciles and have moved into Kashmir and bought land and buildings. By the government of India's own statement, 2 people have got this. So you know what this demographic fear is. Thirdly, elections, to my mind, must be done perhaps as soon as the election to the 5 states are over. This will act as a sort of a balm to the people of Kashmir. There is also talk that there will be full restoration of statehood. I think the central government and the ruling dispensation will show some degree of sensitivity and maturity in these dark times to do statehood first and do the elections later. And this is a demand I think Farooq Abdullah Saab has also been making. So I think in all, this is my package for this interaction. I hope I have been able to make a few points which are worthy of consideration by all the friends who are present here. Thank you very much, O.P. Shah.
Thank you very much. Manjeet Singh Khera from Chandigarh, an activist for 30 years. My problem is I have 7 Kashmiri friends who want...
I'm not going to take much time. I'll not repeat what people have said. I'll take only 1 minute. I congratulate you for holding this and producing the book. And I want to add that nobody has talked about people-to-people relations being restored. And if trade can take place through Bombay and Karachi, why can't it be revived through Wagah and Hossainiwala? That will create an atmosphere of goodwill and economic well-being on 2 sides, which will promote an atmosphere and pressure in the 2 countries to have good relations. So I would suggest we must talk of opening up the borders. I remember when trade through trucks of vegetables from this Punjab went to Iran, there was improvement and prosperity. And there was a great pressure from this side that we must have land route trade. And in the present atmosphere of international relations in Central Asia, India will have a booming trade if land routes are opened. And once trade and commerce start, political dialogue certainly takes place under pressure from economic lobbies. Our countries are ruled by economic interests more than any other interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Iftar Ahmed, and then Kulkarni Saab. And then Kasuri Saab would speak at the end.
Thank you, O.P. Shah Saab, for giving me the opportunity. I will take not more than 3 minutes. In the first minute, I will introduce myself. I'm not a political leader. I'm not an elected person. I'm an ordinary human being. Though I was born in Pakistan, I could have easily be born in India. So I represent the ordinary people. I work as a psychiatrist, and I'm grateful for giving me the opportunity to share. I write and I charge both sides, the ruling classes, who have held both countries to hostage. Kashmir, I think up till now, the approach has been as a territorial disagreement. I wish they had looked at as a human beings living there who have been suffering from this. I have been lived away from Pakistan for 30 years in UK, and UK has a big India and Pakistani community. I will give you my observation about people-to-people talk. When any Indian or a new Pakistani comes to this country, first of all the multicultural and all the other communities, they look for if there's another one Indian or Pakistani, and they get on like fire. But as soon as you talk about these issues, we are held back. So that's the first point we have to keep in mind. Number two, all the nations in the world, they have problems. In my article, I gave a few examples. Last minute, yes. When our ruling classes who are elected, when they consider that people are important, human beings are important, not the territories or ideologies are important, I think that is the only way we can solve this problem. We can talk till the last day, but we can take, like in English they say, we can take the horse to the water, but we cannot make them drink the water. That is the issue with our ruling elites in both sides of the border. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Kulkarni Saab. Sudhindra Kulkarni Saab.
Please unmute yourself.
I just saw him here. Mr.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. First for bringing out this book under your editorship, and secondly for organizing this seminar, this webinar. Such dialogue should continue, especially when there is absolutely no dialogue at the governmental level. And for want of time, I stop here and thank you once again.
एक तो मैक्सिमलिस्ट अप्रोच की आपने कुछ बात की थी. Can you just explain in 1 minute?
No, if there is 1 minute, I would just say.
Take more than a minute, because that most people would like to know from you. Please.
First point, there doesn't seem to be any political will on our side for resumption of dialogue, and however much we civil society people can talk, it doesn't make much difference unless the governments begin to talk. and very distressing to know that there is absolutely no desire to resume dialogue. You know, when our Prime Minister can participate in virtual summit meetings with world leaders on various platforms, why can't he participate at least in a virtual SARC meeting? So I don't see much of a commitment from this government. So we have to continue working together at the civil society level and hope for a change in the political atmosphere in India. There are some good signs of a change in the attitude of Pakistan. The national security policy that has come out just a day ago it has some very good points, especially with regard to human security, with regard to putting geoeconomics and not geostrategy at the center of national security, which means that connectivity and economic cooperation between India and Pakistan and other countries in the region. This is something which can take the whole region forward towards prosperity. Unfortunately, there is no stomach for this, and that's why we have to continue such dialogue and create a political atmosphere that brings about the necessary change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dulat Saab, is Dulat Saab around? Dulat Saab, Mushahid Hussain Saab, Mushahid Hussain Saab. Well, we have 6-7 friends from Kashmiri who want to speak. Now we don't have so much time. So should we, what is your advice? And all those 7 friends have contributed articles, so their thoughts are known. So can you give your time today to someone else? So otherwise we will need at least half an hour for our Kashmiri friends now, half an hour to 40 minutes. So my request to you is that since Farooq Abdullah Saab, Kapil Kak Saab, Tariq Ami Saab have spoken, you know, they represent the Jammu and Kashmir. So can we have the benefit of response from Kasuri Saab? Is that all right? Is that acceptable?
Okay, sir. Okay. Sure.
I know that several friends, I know Muzaffar Shah, Tali Saab, Ashwani ji, everyone wants to. I see Harsh Narayan, I see Praveen Dawar, they all want to speak, but
I don't want to speak, but I have got only one thing to say. Number one, I congratulate you. I thought today's discussion will be confined to the articles in the book and the suggestions made by various people. Just a minute. What happened that we have been raking past in these discussions. Although your title is way forward, we don't go forward, we go backwards. So kindly note it for future that we should forget the past and move forward. That is all what I want to say.
Thank you.
Only one point.
Kasab,
one point I'll raise. I'll not take even 30 seconds. Well, thank you for this lovely book that you have come out with, and we have all contributed. Like we say that the road to peace in South Asia is through Kashmir. And only one point I would like to add here, because we have had bilateral talks for the last 70 years, and unfortunately they have not yielded any result. So apart from the civil society initiative that we all are taking, and we should take it forward into Pakistan, and Pakistan civil society should come and take it forward into this country. I will only say one thing, that the people of Jammu and Kashmir on both sides of the line of control, they have to be in part and parcel of a dialogue between the governments of India and Pakistan.
Thank you.
It's a must.
Ashwani ji, would you like to say a word or two like this? Ashwani.
Shah Sahab.
Ashwani ji. No. Praveen ji, please. And then we have Kasuri Sahab. Praveen ji.
Thank you, sir. And no going back on 370 and 35A. That is a must. It has to be resolved.
Yes, Mr. Prophet.
Hello.
Please speak. आप बोलिए प्रवीण डावर साहब.
Shah Sahab, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, 1 or 2 points. I am Professor Vani from Srinagar. 1 or 2 points that I would like to make.
1 point only. Yes, please make.
Yeah, is that any step that is being taken at the civil society level, at the level of the people, or even at the level of the government at this point of time is definitely a welcome step. Today's Indian Express carried an article by former Foreign Secretary of India, Shri Shyam Sharanji, on Siachen, that some discussion at some level is going on. All this definitely brings up some amount of optimism in the atmospherics in the larger region. What is very important to recognize is that for a long time, when we used to discuss the peace process between India and Pakistan, or intra-regional peace process within Jammu and Kashmir or across Jammu and Kashmir, I have been part of many of those initiatives, many of those, in fact, meetings. On the Indian side, there always used to be a sort of a what you call as a reference to an irritant in the Pakistani politics about the role of the army there. Now what has happened is that over a period of time, politically conservative institution in the shape of what you call as the Hindu right has also unfortunately in a way emerged as an institution. And I don't think without the Pakistani army and what you call as the Hindu right in Indian politics, these two, there would be any definite movement forward in as far as India-Pakistan relationship is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri, please. Kasuri Sahab.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you, Shah Sahab. I'll try and wind up as well as I can. Thank you, first of all, providing this opportunity to all of us on either side of the border who wish peace between our countries.
Mr. Kasuri Sahab, before you speak, could it be possible that I speak to you for only 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
All right. 30 seconds for you, Ashwini ji.
You referred in your initial observation to some kind of a fringe elements talking in terms of genocide of Muslims in India. Let me clarify that it is simply a fringe element in India, but how these fringe elements grow. I have a complete theory about it. The theory is that they grow when actual genocide takes place. The genocide of Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir, then it remained unattended for the last 35 years. That they went into exile, in exile, and their issues have not been attended, have not been responded. Then fringe elements come up and say what they have said, as you have referred to that. But let me tell you at the same time.
Thank you.
But let me assure you at the same time that it is absolutely a fringe element, but let the actual genocide of Kashmiri Pandits be addressed. That's a very important aspect of Kashmir and issue of relations between India and Pakistan, because it was done by the terrorists, guns and money coming from Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Kasturi Saab, sorry, please.
Thank you very much. So many points have been raised, and I was lucky to meet my friends again, Mani Shankar, Yashwant Sinha Saab, and so many others. But before I start, I'd like to make one or two points. In my initial remarks, I was purposely vague because you would ask me to start. My views are well known, and also not just in the book, but also as foreign minister. And I didn't go for peace between the two countries when I became foreign minister. It was much earlier. Now, I would like to recognize what Air Marshal Kapil Kak, I believe he belongs to the Indian Air Force, a retired officer. Am I right? Mr. Kak, can you hear me?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay. I think he did make some very valuable points. The reason I didn't raise the 4 points issue to start with is because I felt focus would be diverted to that. And I was certain I'd get an opportunity in the end. And Mani Shankar Iyer has rightly threw light on it, and Air Marshal Kapil Kak also. Yes, that is a very good starting point. The reason I didn't raise it, I don't wish to take the credit, nor do I wish only that government to take the credit, because Vajpayee Saab started the peace process and Dr. Manmohan Singh was involved in it later on. But whatever my experience tells me is, whenever we restart the peace process, whether it's during this government or the next government in India, or this government or the next government in Pakistan, I have tried hard to think how else could we reconcile what on the face of it looks irreconcilable. And we spent 3 or 4 years in that, talking secretly, behind the curtains, not just to the Indians, but also to Kashmiris. I knew one thing, that if whatever announcement we made and did not prepare public opinion in Kashmir, India and Pakistan, it will fall flat on its face. That is why on some occasions, some people in Pakistan and definitely in India objected to the fact that I was speaking on issues which they thought I ought not to. The reason is that I didn't wish them to be surprised or shocked when the ultimate, let's say, blueprint was announced. Now, we would not have announced this before going to our respective constitutional organs in both the countries, because only they could take the decision, the parliament and the cabinets. But the more I think about it, that is the only solution which can reconcile totally conflicting positions, and it takes care of, is the least, let's say, the least worst solution, if I can put it. All the solutions that I can think of, from Kashmiri point of view, it will be completely different. They will want a plebiscite. From Pakistan's point of view, we may want something plus that. India may wish to do nothing about it. This is the only thing which takes into consideration the aspirations of the Kashmiris, the aspirations of the Indian and Pakistani governments and peoples. So I don't know how else can you start the dialogue. So one thing is quite clear, regardless of what a few people have said, there's a general realization in Pakistan and India that even among peaceniks in both the countries, in Pakistan and India, that you have to somehow resolve Kashmir issue before we can go to larger sense of regional development. After all, why should Pakistan, India have been left behind? Southeast Asia, China, we were ahead of China and Southeast Asia. I remember making a remark. I was invited to the Communist Party of China, I think late 80s, early 90s, and I landed in Shanghai. Oh, I said it it reminds me of Karachi. And they were very proud that I was comparing Shanghai to Karachi. It looks ridiculous now because when you look at where China is and where Pakistan and India are, I can't believe that there is something wrong with us intrinsically. We have just wasted our time focusing on issues rather than on our own development. And I don't want to use this occasion to highlight this point, but it amazes me that there was a time when Pakistani exports in 1960s were more than the combined exports of Malaysia, of Thailand, and maybe alone of South Korea. I mean, it makes you cry. India was far ahead of Pakistan. I'm talking of Pakistan. It makes you cry why we have been left behind. Now, why I mentioned Air Marshal Kapil Kak, he did say it about Siachen, and it was mentioned by another honorable participant. Well, it's a low-hanging fruit. I mentioned in my book also, it's not just Siachen, it's also Sir Creek. Let's get them out of the way. And if we can agree on that, it will be a great start because if it will at least create hope. In fact, when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was going to come to Pakistan in, I think, August 2006, and he couldn't because he sent a message that he'd like to come a few months later because of 6 Indian elections, including in UP. And so we understood that, and a later date was agreed. But one of the things that was going to be done was signature on Sir Creek. That Sir Creek was going to be signed. Both governments would agree to it. It was a low-hanging fruit. We also thought Siachen was a low-hanging fruit. On many occasions, our defense secretaries agreed on that. So the first thing, I'm happy to hear from Indian participants that they feel, and that the former foreign secretary has written in the Indian Express, I learned today from this seminar, and I welcome the remarks of the former Indian foreign secretary. I am all for going for low-hanging fruit. But as it was pointed out by Kashmiris and non-Kashmiris, that we cannot get away from Kashmir issue. So we will, if we start from 4 points, we will be, it's not the last word, it can be improved. In fact, paragraphs can be changed, words can be changed, the ownership will be changed, but I find it difficult to think of brand new ideas. So that's one thing. Number two, as far as the suggestion by my learned friend Yashwant Sinha Sahab, yes, I welcome that. Let's do that. But whenever we do that, we will still be confronted, as we have been for so many years. After all, there was a lot of thinking that had gone into the composite dialogue, and the 2 foreign offices, they are trained for that. If you want, we can do it again, but you will come to the same list of 7 or 8 subjects on which we will have to talk. So, as far as the one statement, I was surprised, and maybe he did not mean, because there was a contradiction, as Senator Javed Jabbar had pointed out. My friend Mr. Sinha had rightly said that foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. Earlier, the famous British Prime Minister Gladstone, who was Prime Minister of Britain for 4 or 5 times, said the same thing. Now, if you have a situation as we have in India today, and for political considerations, it seems that it's politically advantageous to badmouth Pakistan or Indian Muslims, not just Kashmiris. So I hope we'll soon get away. One of the participants pointed out, I think it was Air Marshal Kapil Kak, who said that he has noticed a change. If there is a change, I welcome that. But in the end, I would like to congratulate you, Shah Saab, for the valuable work that you've done, the book that you have edited, and I'm sure times will change. 70 years or 74 years, a long time in the history of one individual, in the life of an individual, but in the history of nations, yes, there is always scope for improvement. let's hope that the next 75 years will be much better than the ones that we have seen so far. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Kasuri Saab. My request to Sudhindra Kulkarni Saab for final words and vote of thanks. Whatever he wishes to say, that will be the end of the discussion. Sudhindra Kulkarni Saab. And thank all, obviously, the participants.
There is really no need for any remarks from my side, because I think that Kasuri Saab spoke for both Indians and Pakistanis. As a friend of India, he always puts the interests of both countries at the center of dialogue. So I don't wish to say anything more, except on behalf of all the participants and all the contributors to the book, to congratulate you once again, Shah Saab. Such efforts should continue, and let's hope for the best in 2022. Dhanyawad, Shukriya, Jai Hind, Jai Pakistan.
And let's meet again.
Thank you very much. Hope soon. Thank you.